Stacy Hunsucker, 32, called Mount Holly, North Carolina home. She was married to her high school sweetheart, Joshua, and they were raising their two daughters, Piper and Willow. Everyone who knew her described her the same way, a great mother and a happy person. Yet, beneath this seemingly perfect picture of domestic life, something sinister was escalating. On September 23rd, 2018, Stacy's life was abruptly and cruelly stolen in a calculated and chilling manner. Born Stacy Robinson in Mecklenburg County to John and Susie Robinson, she was one of four siblings, including brothers Eric and Paul and the sister, Amy. After graduating from East Gaston High School, Stacy earned an associate's degree in paralegal sciences from Gaston College. She initially worked as a paralegal at Ted Grieve and Associates, and later at Reagan & Reagan, before deciding to pursue her true passion, teaching. She went on to work at several preschools, including First Baptist Charlotte, First Methodist Preschool in Mount Holly, and finally at the Stowe Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA. Stacy was also known for her creativity. Her friend Shell O'Day noted Stacy's skill at crafting, particularly her painted wooden signs that she would sell. In the summer of 2018, O'Day visited Stacy's home to collect a custom welcome sign she had purchased for $50. Stacy first met Joshua Lee Hunsucker while working at a department store. He was 2 years her senior, and what first caught his attention was her impressive height. Stacy stood at 5'11", and Joshua topped her at 6'5". Stacy initially turned him down several times when he asked her out, but Joshua was persistent. He discovered that she plays softball and began showing up at her practices, eventually joining her team. Both were talented players with genuine potential to play professionally. Their relationship eventually turned romantic, and they married in 2010 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Having been together since high school, they were widely regarded as a happy couple. They welcomed two daughters, Piper Elizabeth and Willow Darlene. By then, Joshua had established a successful career, working as a flight paramedic with Atrium Health's Med Center Air, a position he had held since 2013. Joshua, a former college football player, was known for being confident and persuasive. Stacy transitioned into a full-time homemaker, dedicating herself completely to raising their daughters. Their social life involved enjoying concerts and cookouts with friends. Shell O'Day, a friend, described them simply as a cute couple and never witnessed any arguments between them. Stacy was also a devoted lifetime member of the Mount Holly United Methodist Church, where she was active in numerous groups and activities. Her personal joys included crafting, trips to the beach, watching sports, and taking countless pictures of her daughters and herself. However, challenges were hidden beneath this pleasant exterior. In February 2013, following the birth of their first daughter, Piper, Stacy began suffering from unexplained medical issues. Her symptoms were vague yet deeply concerning, and her health continued to deteriorate without doctors being able to find a clear explanation. Just 5 months later, in July 2013, tragedy struck. A devastating house fire ripped through their home, incinerating most of their possessions. The blaze left the couple profoundly shaken, both emotionally and financially. The devastating fire meant everything they had worked for was gone. Friends immediately rallied to support the young family in their efforts to rebuild. Suzanne Steinbronner, a friend of the couple, launched the GoFundMe campaign to help with the accumulating costs. This fundraising page would later serve as a record of Stacy's increasingly mysterious medical decline. Unfortunately, Stacy's health issues only compounded their troubles. In November 2014, shortly after the birth of their second daughter, Willow, Stacy was hospitalized with dangerously low heart rate and blood pressure. She required a stay in the intensive care unit for several days. Despite countless tests, the medical team was baffled. unable to determine the cause of her symptoms. It seemed as if her body was being attacked by an invisible enemy. Suzanne updated the GoFundMe page, stating that after extensive testing, the doctors were still stumped as to what was going on. The crisis deepened in January 2015. Stacy was readmitted due to a low heart rate, and this time, the situation became life-threatening. Soon after settling into her room, she suffered cardiac arrest. Her heart simply stopped beating. She was placed on a ventilator, fighting for her life, while doctors desperately tried to comprehend what was happening to the young woman. The following month, February 2015, an astonishing decision was made. Stacy had a pacemaker implanted. This was an extreme measure for a woman not yet 30 years old. Needing a device to regulate her heartbeat suggested a serious, fundamental defect in her heart's electrical system. What no one realized at the time was that these were not natural medical problems at all. In hindsight, every symptom Stacy experienced was later found to be consistent with poisoning from tetrahydrozoline. When ingested, this chemical can severely and sometimes fatally affect the heart and body. The pattern had been evident all along: repeated, unexplained episodes of dangerously low heart rate and blood pressure. These were sudden cardiac events that completely baffled medical professionals. A young woman with no history of heart disease in her family was suddenly in need of a pacemaker. Joshua, with his extensive medical training as a flight paramedic, would have known exactly what symptoms to anticipate. He would have known how to administer the poison in doses that were not immediately lethal, but which would cause chronic, debilitating health issues. Furthermore, he would have been aware that standard medical tests would fail to detect it, and that doctors would ultimately attribute her decline to a heart condition, rather than suspecting poisoning. For Stacy's mother, Susie, there was a persistent, nagging worry. If she had a bad dream, she would immediately call her daughter to confirm she was safe. A mother's instinct, sensing that something was wrong, even if she couldn't pinpoint the cause. The medical emergencies, however, had created another devastating problem: crushing debt. While the GoFundMe campaign provided some relief, the financial pressure was enormous. Hospital stays, specialist visits, the pacemaker surgery, and ongoing care resulted in bills that relentlessly mounted. All the while, Joshua was executing a plan far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. He was slowly and methodically poisoning his wife, carefully building a medical history that would ensure her eventual sudden death appeared to be inevitable, unremarkable, and entirely natural. Then, on the evening of September 23, 2018, Joshua placed a 911 call. Joshua informed the responding officers that he had discovered his 32-year-old wife unresponsive, slumped over the side of the couch. However, his account of his actions just before finding her became a major point of suspicion, as his story kept shifting and changing depending on who he was speaking to. To the police. At the scene, he claimed he had stepped outside to ensure their cars were locked, citing a recent spate of auto burglaries as his reason, a plausible explanation. He told a friend he had simply gone for a walk to burn off some energy. He offered yet another version, saying he had been sitting in the backyard cutting wood for signs he produced. He told Susie he had been sitting at the kitchen table working on his laptop with his back to Stacy. When he turned around, he saw her slumped over the couch. 4 different stories, 4 different versions. The fact that his narrative changed so frequently strongly suggested deception, as the truth about finding a deceased loved one typically remains constant. When paramedics arrived, they found Stacy unresponsive, cyanic, blue, and not breathing. They rushed her to the hospital, but despite all efforts, it was too late. Stacy Robinson Hunsucker was pronounced dead. The cause of death seemed clear to everyone: cardiac arrest. Given her well-documented heart problems, the pacemaker, and her history of mysterious cardiac events, local police treated it as a natural death, a tragic but not suspicious passing of a young woman whose heart had simply failed. However, Joshua's actions and the hours and days following her death were deeply concerning. He refused to allow a coroner to perform an autopsy, remaining absolutely adamant. This was highly unusual, especially because Stacy had registered to be an organ donor, which typically requires facilitating the donation process. Joshua, nonetheless, was insistent and unwavering. Within just 2 days, Stacy's body was cremated. The specific evidence that eventually allowed investigators to connect Joshua to Stacy's death, despite the swift cremation, centered on 2 main factors: his shifting narratives and suspicious behavior, and the subsequent discovery of a toxic substance in Stacy's system, revealed through a highly unusual separate investigation. Investigators realized that Joshua's 4 conflicting stories, checking car locks, going for a walk, cutting wood, and working on his laptop, all served one purpose: to account for a period of time when he was not in the room with Stacy, thus creating a window during which he could have administered the fatal substance. His immediate focus on claiming the $250,000 in life insurance and the unseemly haste in cremating Stacy's body, which destroyed much of the physical evidence, further fueled their suspicion. Crucially, because Stacy was an organ donor, samples had been collected by the Organ Procurement Organization before her body was cremated. Although Joshua had refused a formal coroner's autopsy, these stored samples were later obtained and tested by investigators. The toxicology report from these samples delivered the smoking gun. Stacy had a lethal level of tetrahydrozoline in her system. This evidence proved that Stacy had been poisoned, and coupled with Joshua's motive, changing stories, and attempts to suppress an investigation, it led to his arrest and eventual conviction. Joshua and his new girlfriend Jen were focused on a future that involved buying a brand new house, a fresh start away from the home he'd shared with Stacy. Strikingly, Joshua rarely spoke about Stacy. He never mentioned missing her or the girl's mother, nor did he share any memories of her with his daughters. To Kaylin, the babysitter, it was as if Stacy had been completely erased from their lives. Kaylin found this behavior incomprehensible, contrasting it with her own experience of constantly sharing memories after her father's death to keep his spirit alive. Within 6 months of Stacy's death, the new girlfriend was a highly visible figure in Joshua's life and in the lives of his young daughters. She moved into the very house he had previously shared with his wife, the house where Stacy died, and even the bed where Stacy slept. Kaylin felt Jen was simply Stacy's replacement, seamlessly stepping into a newly vacated role. Joshua's colleagues at Atrium Health's Med Center noticed the same unsettling pattern. They informed investigators that Joshua seemed completely unaffected by his wife's death. They expressed deep concern to the police about the shocking speed with which he had moved on with his girlfriend and how quickly Jen had become integrated into his life. They described the speed as unseemly, inappropriate, and shocking. To them, Joshua appeared unfazed, acting as if Stacy's death was an inconvenience rather than a tragedy, as if he'd actually been waiting for it to happen. Following the collection of $250,000 from Stacy's life insurance policies, Joshua initiated a spending spree that drew significant attention and suspicion throughout the community. The insurance money immediately funded a substantial spending spree. Joshua purchased an expensive boat valued between $80,000 and $100,000, a transaction a judge later warned him not to conceal. He also took his new girlfriend on multiple expensive vacations, trips they couldn't have afforded when they were burdened by medical debt while Stacy was alive. Additionally, he paid off the mortgage on the family's Mount Holly home, valued at $215,380. Stacy's parents' wrongful death lawsuit later highlighted these expenditures, arguing they demonstrated Joshua was thrilled to be free, rich, and ready to start a new life with his mistress. For Susie's mother, these actions were massive, undeniable red flags. She learned the affair with the new girlfriend had been ongoing even before Stacy's death, continuing in secret while Stacy was in intensive care. She also knew Joshua had filed the life insurance claims for the $250,000 just days after Stacy died, before the funeral. In Susie's mind, the pieces of a darker truth were assembling. Rapid insurance claims, refusal of an autopsy and immediate cremation, new girlfriend who had been there all along, Stacy's unexplained, mysterious health problems over the years, extravagant spending, the boat and vacations, and Joshua's complete absence of grief. 9 months after her daughter's death, in May 2019, Susie Robinson made the pivotal decision to contact the North Carolina Department of Insurance. She filed fraud allegations against Joshua, suspecting he had killed Stacy for the insurance money and to be free to marry his mistress without the inconvenience of a divorce. This simple act, driven by a mother's intuition, triggered a full-blown murder investigation. Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey confirmed that Susie's referral was sent directly to their Criminal Investigations Division. A formidable team was assembled for the renewed investigation, including the North Carolina Department of Insurance Criminal Investigations Division, the Gaston County Police, and the Department of Homeland Security. Special Agent Lisa Morgan, assigned to the case, made a crucial discovery. Because Stacy had been an organ donor, the Life Share Donor Center had preserved a vial of her blood prior to cremation. This standard protocol for organ donors proved to be the single piece of evidence Joshua had not accounted for. The blood sample was sent for comprehensive toxicology testing. While standard tests for common drugs and poisons were negative, the investigators requested specialized, broader screening. The results were shocking. Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey confirmed the presence of poison in Stacy's blood, tetrahydrozoline. This is a common chemical found in eye drops used to reduce redness. Crucially, the concentration found was not therapeutic. It was 30 to 40 times higher than normal therapeutic levels, a quantity that could not be explained by accidental ingestion or normal use. The high concentration of tetrahydrozoline, 30 to 40 times the therapeutic level, indicated to forensic toxicologist Demi Garden that this was deliberate, repeated, systematic poisoning, which she described as a modern-day Mickey Finn, where a substance is secretly added to a drink. Tetrahydrozoline is a decongestant found in products like Vicine eye drops and nasal sprays. While safe when used externally, it becomes deadly when ingested. The symptoms it causes can easily mimic natural illness, making detection difficult. For Stacy, who already had a heart condition and a pacemaker, the poison was devastating, attacking her heart to make her death appear to be a simple, tragic cardiac event. Crucially, standard toxicology screens do not routinely test for tetrahydrozoline, meaning it's invisible unless investigators know specifically to look for it. North Carolina State Attorney Jordan Green emphasized that the substance has a dramatic effect on the heart, causing heart stoppage or heart failure. The inescapable conclusion was that this was not an accident. This was murder. Joshua Hunsucker's background as a flight paramedic since 2013 provided him with extensive medical training, and an intimate, detailed knowledge of medications and their effects on the human body. Court documents highlighted that his experience gave him a thorough understanding of various drugs. His job also gave him the means and opportunity to commit the crime, as his employment offered access to non-controlled substances that didn't require logging or inventory control. As the investigation into Stacy's death rapidly expanded, a disturbing detail emerged. Just 2 weeks before Stacy's death, a parallel incident occurred nearby. On August 31, 2018, a nurse named Lana Sue Clayton was arrested for poisoning her husband, Stephen Clayton, with eye drops. Clayton confessed to secretly putting the eye drops in her husband's water over 3 days until he died. This knowledge, combined with Hunsucker's medical background, suggested the murder of Stacy was a calculated, premeditated, cold-blooded murder. Joshua Hunsucker's crime was characterized as a calculated, premeditated, and cold-blooded murder given his background as a flight paramedic since 2013 provided him with extensive medical training and detailed knowledge of medications and their effects on the human body. Prosecutors drew attention to several similarities between the two cases, which received extensive media coverage in the Charlotte area. Both Hunsucker and Clayton worked in the medical field. Both were home alone with their spouse at the time of death. Both deaths were initially ruled natural, and both involved tetrahydrozoline poisoning, the active ingredient in many eye drops. Court documents allege that within days of learning about the South Carolina case, Joshua secretly placed eye drops containing a deadly amount of tetrahydrozoline in Stacy's water. Furthermore, detectives spoke to Hunsucker's former colleagues at Atrium Health's Med Center Air, two of whom testified that before Stacy's death, Joshua had explicitly told them that if he were to kill someone, he would use Vicine or other eye drops. Joshua Hunsucker's bond was subsequently revoked on January 28, 2020, due to his escalating harassment of Stacy's parents, the Robinsons. District Attorney Travis Page argued that Hunsucker's actions had violated the terms of his bond and necessitated his rearrest. A hearing was held where Judge Bill Kennedy agreed with the prosecution, deeming Hunsucker a danger to the community and a flight risk. Hunsucker was then taken back into custody and held without bond. On May 27, 2021, Hunsucker officially entered an Alford plea to the charge of first-degree murder. An Alford plea means that the defendant does not admit guilt, but acknowledges that the prosecution has enough evidence to likely secure a conviction from a jury. As part of a plea agreement to avoid a capital murder trial and the possibility of the death penalty, Hunsucker was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was additionally ordered to pay $12,000 in restitution. Before the sentence was handed down, Stacy's mother, Susie Robinson, delivered a powerful victim impact statement describing the anguish and heartbreak Hunsucker had inflicted upon their family. Hunsucker also made a brief statement, offering a limited apology, stating that he was truly sorry for the pain he had caused the Robinsons. Following his life sentence for the murder of his wife Stacy, Joshua Hunsucker's bond was initially revoked in January 2020 due to his incessant harassment of the Robinsons. He eventually entered an Alford plea to first-degree murder on May 27, 2021, and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, even from prison, the intimidation was relentless, clearly designed to terrify the Robinsons into silence. Then, in a bizarre and desperate attempt to shift blame, on February 4, 2023, Joshua staged his own kidnapping. He reported to police that he had been pistol-whipped, zip-tied, and injected with an unknown substance while changing a flat tire, and he falsely accused Stacy's father, John Robinson, as his attacker, attempting to frame him for the assault. Mount Holly police conducted a thorough investigation and immediately concluded that Hunsucker had fabricated the entire incident, finding no evidence to support his claims. Joshua's disturbing actions did not stop there. Just weeks after the fake kidnapping report in February 2023, he committed a more heinous act by poisoning his own 11-year-old daughter, which resulted in a serious medical scare and her hospitalization. Tests confirmed the presence of the same chemical agent used to murder Stacy in the child's system, along with an unapproved antidepressant that had also been found in Hunsucker's truck. While the daughter was being treated, Joshua attempted to mislead doctors by suggesting she had been given Visine, a claim medical staff deemed inconsistent with her actual symptoms. The prosecution believes Joshua Hunsucker poisoned his daughter as part of a malignant scheme to frame the Robinsons, Stacy's parents, and thereby have them excluded from his daughter's life. This attempt at manipulation backfired drastically. In July 2024, a judge determined that Joshua had abused his daughter and neglected both of his children. His relentless efforts to control the situation continued, leading to another arrest in August 2024 for witness intimidation. By November 2024, the courts revoked his bond, and he remains in custody without the possibility of release, actions described by those involved as evil and monstrous for the extreme lengths he went to in order to avoid accountability. Adding to the list of his crimes, less than a month before his December 2019 arrest for murder, Joshua allegedly committed felony arson. On November 26, 2019, at 12:59 a.m., he is accused of setting fire to a syringe pump inside an Atrium Health helicopter while it was mid-flight over Charlotte. This reckless act forced an emergency landing at a car dealership on Independence Boulevard, although no one was injured. Investigators saw the timing as significant, suggesting the arson was a desperate attempt to create chaos because Joshua sensed his impending arrest for murder. Atrium Health expressed profound shock at his actions, calling it unfathomable that he would endanger lives in this manner. Prior to his murder arrest, Joshua was already on administrative leave for alleged workplace misconduct, and he was officially terminated from Atrium Health's Med Center Air, where he had worked since 2013, the day after his December 2019 arrest for murder. His murder trial, originally scheduled for March 2025, is now likely to be pushed back to autumn 2025 due to these significant new developments in his case, as indicated by the prosecutors through their attorney. Stacy Hunsucker's family released a poignant statement following Joshua's initial arrest, expressing their unwavering commitment. "We will not rest until justice is served. We will do everything in our power to support and care for your beautiful daughters, Piper and Willow." A high school friend, Kelly, lamented the tragedy, emphasizing that Stacy, a great mother and a happy person, did not deserve her fate. This case underscored the vital importance of financial crime investigation in solving violent crimes. Insurance Commissioner Mike Corey noted that it was unexpected for an insurance fraud investigation to evolve into a murder probe. He concluded that had it not been for Susie Robinson's mother's intuition and the preserved blood sample from organ donation, Joshua might have successfully committed the perfect crime. Stacy Robinson Hunsucker is remembered as a devoted mother, teacher, and church member. She enjoyed crafting, trips to the beach, watching sports, and photographing her daughters. She was known for a radiant smile that brought happiness and comfort to those around her. As of November 2024, Joshua remains held without bond in the Gaston County Jail. His two daughters, currently approximately 12 and 14 years old, have been removed from his care. John and Susie Robinson continue their legal battle for custody of their granddaughters. Although justice is still pending, the family remains determined that Stacy Robinson Hunsucker will not be forgotten.